The new cult, death threats, and a Sai Baba connection. The world's oldest prophecy, decoding the Bhrigu Samhita mystery. Episode 2. As he reached over for his iPhone, he saw that it was a number he didn't recognize. Oh boy, Dave mused to himself, another robocall, probably from the IRS, warning me that the sheriff is outside if I don't pay up right away. But he answered it anyways, and thankfully it was from a newspaper reporter from San Francisco. Hi, is this Dr. David Lane? Yes. Hope I got you at a good time. This is Christopher Slavins. I am a reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle. We talked several years ago about the cult leader Adi Da. Yeah, I remember that. What's up? Dave replied. Well, right now I am doing research on Ekankar and its various offshoots, including a group called the Twitchellians. I was hoping you knew something about them. No, never heard of that group. They allege that both Rebazar Tars, the reputed 500-year-old Tibetan monk, and Sudar Singh, Twitchel's first yoga teacher, are real, historical people, and that your claim they are entirely made up by Paul Twitchell, the founder of Ekankar, is mistaken. What sort of evidence do they have? That's why I am contacting you. They claim that they are in contact with an Indian ashram in Agra that has documented details about Sudar Singh. I asked them about Rebazar, but they were less than forthcoming about him. What's the name of the ashram? I'm going to Agra for a conference in a week, so it would be fun to check it out. Cool. That would be great. I will email it to you. Is neuralsurfer@yahoo.com the best way to reach you? Yes. Okay, we'll send it right now. Dave had gotten phone calls like this for the past 40 years, ever since he had written an expose of Ekankar, a new religious movement founded by Paul Twitchell in 1965 in San Diego, California. What started out as a simple term paper for Professor Happ's Cults and Sects class at California State University Northridge evolved into a full-fledged research project which culminated in a 120-page manuscript. Ekankar threatened legal action against Dave when he was barely 21 years old, and this only motivated him more to look into Paul Twitchell's past. What he uncovered was that Twitchell had invented a galaxy of Ek-masters, such as Rebazar Tars and Sudar Singh, to cover up his real-life past associations with Swami Premananda, Kirpal Singh, and L. Ron Hubbard. Twitchell claimed to have gone to India in the 1930s, but he never did. Moreover, much of Twitchell's writings were plagiarized word by word from other authors, particularly Julian P. Johnson. After Lane's work was excerpted in the SCP Journal published in Berkeley, California, and distributed worldwide, he began getting phone calls and interviews about Ekankar and other related movements. Hence, the phone call he received today didn't alarm him. What did throw him off was the outrageous claim that this new Ekankar offshoot, the Twitchellians, had discovered historical documents about Sudar Singh, who, according to Twitchell's own account, died in the late 1930s when he was over 100 years old. Dave had previously been invited by the Dayal Bog Educational Institute in Agra, India, to be one of their keynote speakers at their annual technology conference on the interface between science and religion. He was scheduled to give his address on August 29th. Since he would be staying in India for a couple of weeks, this would allow him time to visit the ashram that the Twitchellians had mentioned. Email from Christopher Slavins. Dear Dr. Lane, great chatting today with you. The ashram is called Shanti Sudar and is just outside of Agra. The address that they provided me says it is located near the famous Shani Devi Mandir on the 509 passageway towards Hathras. The head Mahant is named Sri Gopal Daswanji. I asked for a phone contact, but haven't heard back from them yet. Thanks, and keep me posted if you do go there and what you can find out. Sincerely, Chris. Email from David C. Lane. Hi, Christopher. I appreciate the information. Hopefully I can find out more. We'll keep in touch. Dave. A few days later, as Dave was finishing his packing and putting the final touches on his planned presentation on the virtual simulation hypothesis about why consciousness evolved from physical substrates, he got a notification from Frank Visser, founder of the Integral World website in Europe, that a reader had posted a question to his article, Ancient Astrology, an adventure with the Bhrigu Samhita in India. As Dave clicked on the supplied link, the query was one he heard many times before. Dr. Lane, where is the Bhrigu leaf that you were allowed to keep? Is there any way to locate it? Signed, Kunwar. Back in 1978, Dave had left the fragile leaf with Swami for safekeeping, since he was boarding a bus to Amritsar, the famous Sikh holy city, and didn't want the precious document damaged. However, after his prolonged stay, he got sick with a severe case of dysentery and went to Delhi for medical attention and couldn't travel back to Hoshiarpur to retrieve the leaf. He intended to have the parched paper tested to see if it was genuinely old and not just a fake. Once he got back to Berkeley, however, where he was starting his first year in graduate school, he heard word that Swami had died and the leaf was lost. Dave thought that was the end of the story. But this past year, all that changed when he got a Facebook friend request from Jasbir Singh in Jalandhar. Since Dave was indiscriminate in who he added as friends, particularly if they came from India, most of them were satsangis or from students who had seen his televised lectures, he paid no attention to the new addition in his growing roster of cyber acquaintances. Yet, just minutes later, he heard a ping on his Facebook messenger indicating a message from Jasbir. Professor Lane, I am Swami Yogeshwar Ananda Saraswati's nephew, Jasbir. I just watched your film The Bhrigu on YouTube with great interest. However, I am curious. You say that the leaf that you were allowed to keep was given to Swami, but after his death, it was lost. Are you sure? I personally inherited many of Swami's papers. As you may know, he was revising his book, The Science of God Realization, when he suddenly took ill and died. He was dedicating the book to you in honor of your friendship. Did you know that? I also have a very old piece of paper with Sanskrit writing on it, along with a picture of you interviewing Baba Fakir Chand Ji Maharaj, which Swami had kept in a leather pouch. Perhaps this is the same leaf? Dave was confounded. It had been over 40 years since he had written the article. He had always been led to believe that it had been destroyed since nobody would have known of its value unless Swami had informed someone about it. Now here was Jasbir Singh providing news about its possible existence. If this was true, Dave could once and for all prove that the Bhrigu was a fraud, since he was convinced that the paper and the ink were of modern origin. Moreover, why would such an ancient book ask for money to rectify a sin in a previous life? It all pointed to a scam, or so Dave thought. Dave then replied to Jasbir Singh's comment and asked him to correspond with him in private, using his widely used neural surfer email address. After much back and forth, Dave and Jasbir agreed to meet on August 20th at the Taj Swarna Hotel in Amritsar. This would allow Dave ample time to have the leaf vetted. The Twitchellians. A backstory. Dave had caused quite an uproar in Ekankar when his term paper, later book, was released. Thousands of Ekists, as members of the religion are called, left in droves, and it caused much heartache among long-time members, even with those who chose to stay within the organization. Although the plagiarism charges were troublesome since they were so well documented and extensive, what bothered Ekists the most was that Twitchell had invented a fake lineage of Ekankar masters. Twitchell's teachers, Rebazar Tars and Sudha Singh, were cover names and composite characters. They were fictional characters of Twitchell's imagination, even though hundreds, perhaps thousands of Ekists claimed that they had visions of both in their dreams. Some even alleged to have met Rebazar Tars in the physical at Ek meetings and in their home. Because of various controversies in Ekankar, particularly when the second living Ekmaster, Darwin Gross, was excommunicated from the group by his successor, Harold Klemp, the current head of the movement, a number of offshoot movements were formed. Most prominent among these was John Roger Hinkins's movement for spiritual inner awareness MS Iyer, Gary Olson's Masterpath, Sri Alan Feldman's Vardhanakar, and various internet-founded organizations which include Michael Turner's Spiritual Freedom Satsang, SFS, and the NU presentation as developed by Dwayne the Great Writer. The latter group argues that Rebazar Tars is a real being and is the guiding light for all who seek greater enlightenment and freedom. The Twitchellians was a relatively new movement, but Dave couldn't uncover who the founder was. On the Twitchellians' official website, it provides their mission statement. Twitchellian mission statement. We believe that there is a hierarchy of enlightened beings whose mission is to bring the true teachings of the Beyond God, BG, to those mortals who are longing to travel on the inner sound current back to their eternal home. Paul Twitchell was appointed by the ancient order of true detached masters to modernize the Soundway path. Because of the dark forces known as the time dilators, aka as Cal, Paul Twitchell was sabotaged in his ultimate mission and taken out of the body prematurely. His true successor was John Roger Hinkins, but he didn't receive the Rod of Power because of internal politics in Ekankar. John Roger founded MSIA as a vehicle for the continuation of Paul's ministry, but he couldn't openly express this due to legal threats from the Ek Corporation. However, after his physical transition, the truth can now come out. John Roger Hinkins has now joined forces with Rebazar Tars, Sudar Singh, and other illuminated teachers to carry forth the message of Beyond God. After reading the proclamation, Dave shook his head in quiet disgust, ruminating to himself, "Ugh, how can anyone buy such bunk?" Delhi, India. Dave hadn't made a solo trip to India since the summer of 1983, when he went to study Hindi at the Landar Language School in the Himalayas to meet his MA requirements for the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. For the past few trips, he had insisted on taking his wife, Andrea, and their two boys, Sean and Kelly, since he knew they would find it both fascinating and educational. After a brief layover in Tokyo and Singapore, Dave landed in Delhi at mid-morning. The Dialbag Educational Institute had kindly arranged for a driver to pick him up and take him to his favorite hotel, the indulgent Leela Palace, situated in the diplomatic enclave. Dave especially liked the hotel for its rooftop pool, where he could see the sprawling and too often polluted city at night, with all its sparkling lights and sounds. However, before Dave could take his swim, the concierge phoned and informed him that a Dr. Arjun Sinha was in the lobby and wished to meet him as soon as possible. Dr. Sinha? That name doesn't sound familiar, Dave reflected to himself. I wonder what it is about. After splashing some water on his face and briefly checking his emails, Dave took the elevator down, enjoying the distinctive jasmine fragrance that permeated the building. Dr. Lane, so happy to finally meet you. I am a great fan of your work on Fakir Chand. Sorry for my abruptness in showing up unannounced, but our mutual friend Professor Kamal wanted me to welcome you personally and invite you to a dinner at the Hyatt Regency tomorrow night. Some of my colleagues are anxious to discuss your work on Radhaswamy and what you think of the latest political intrigues that have been wreaking havoc on some of the Deras in the Punjab. Would that be possible? Dr. Sinha was a tall man, 6'2" or so, cleanly shaved and impeccably dressed in a Western-style business suit, which Dave thought must be uncomfortable given the summer heat. Well, thank you, Dr. Sinha. I must say that it is quite unexpected, and fortunately I am not leaving for Amritsar until the day after, so my schedule is open. Yes, it would be helpful to me as well to get more information about what has been happening. I have read various newspaper accounts, and they are pretty depressing, especially what happened to Gurmeet Ram Rahim and his rape conviction. One wonders how the Dera Saucha Sauda organization can survive such a controversy. What time are we meeting exactly? By the way, the Hyatt has an exquisite Chinese restaurant. Should we meet there? How is 7 o'clock in the evening for you, Dr. Lane? Perfect. Dr. Sinha then shook Dave's hand and took his leave. Dave was surprised he didn't stay longer, but thankful because he was feeling the effects of jet lag and was still hoping to take a swim. The China Kitchen. Hyatt Regency Hotel, Delhi. The five-star hotels in Delhi each have their own distinctions. The Taj Mahal Hotel boasts a great location in the economic heart of the city and is the main gathering place for politicians and businessmen, though it has aged considerably from its heyday in the 1980s. The newly renovated Oberoi Hotel, adjacent to the Delhi Golf Club, is beautifully designed and serves as a retreat from the hustle and bustle of the never-ending traffic that seems to grow exponentially each year. Dave's old-time favorite, the Ashok, though impressively large, has seen better days and needed a major facelift. Dave liked the Hyatt mostly for the food, particularly because of its pizza cafe, and less for its design. He wasn't quite sure what the evening was all about, except that it would give him a much-needed opportunity to get a first-hand view of how the Radha Swami movement has been developing over the past couple of years. But before Dave could enter into the darkened restaurant, he was accosted by two young men who grabbed him by the arms and led into a side foyer. "Get your hands off me!" Dave shouted, only to be muted when one of the accosters stuck a sharp blade against his ribs. "Quiet. We are here to give you a warning. Take down your internet article on Sathya Sai Baba." "What the hell are you talking about?" Dave queried, completely taken back by the not-so-subtle request. "You know exactly what we are talking about. We will give you 24 hours or else." Pushing Dave to the ground, the two hurriedly left through the side stairwell. Shaken but determined to notify the hotel security, Dave got to his feet and hurried up into the restaurant, hoping to find Dr. Sinha and his companions so they could help him contact the police. But they were nowhere to be found. He then went to main entrance and asked the host where the Dr. Sinha party was sitting. She looked at him quizzically. "I am sorry, but there is no reservation under that name. Perhaps it is under a different name." Dave, getting more agitated because time was of the essence, dismissed her with a hand wave. "I will look around myself and see if I can find them. Perhaps they are upstairs in the private eating area." But Dr. Sinha was nowhere to be found. Dave then rushed out to the main lobby and spoke with the concierge, a kind man by the name of Gersharon, and explained the entire situation. Gersharon got on his cell phone immediately and put his security team on alert. The police eventually arrived, and Dave gave a full report of the weird proceedings. But since it was dark near the restaurant, Dave's description of the assailants wasn't very helpful. After a couple of hours and feeling exhausted and apprehensive, Dave took a short taxi ride back to the Leela Palace. Before departing, the police said they would keep him updated on any new developments. As Dave got to his room, he laid back on his bed. He wanted to call his wife, but knew it would cause her too much anxiety, so instead went on his iPhone and checked the article he had written entitled "The Shadow of a God-Man," exposing Sathya Sai Baba, parts of which had first been published in the journal Understanding Cults and Spiritual Movement in the late 1980s, and later incorporated into a much longer e-book and published on a website in Europe. It was one of the most popular on the Integral World site and had been accessed thousands of times and generated much commentary. The death threat he got earlier in the evening was not the first one he had received that related to the infamous Baba. During the latter part of the 1990s, Yahoo had pioneered an easy way to create a club, later called a forum, on the internet, which allowed specialized topics. Dave had started a number of clubs, each with a guiding subject, ranging from Radha Swami to Ekankar to MSIA to Sathya Sai Baba. By the early 2000s, however, has started getting phone messages at his office daily with a taped recording from the killing sequence in Quentin Tarantino's 1997 film Pulp Fiction, where the main co-lead, Jules Winfield, played by Samuel Jackson, cites a bastardized quote from the Old Testament before shooting his victim. Ezekiel 25:17. "The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the inequities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who, in the name of charity and goodwill, shepherds the weak through the valley of the darkness. For he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. and I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon you." Dave at first thought the death threat was a prank, but after it continued for days into weeks into months, he finally informed the Dean of Humanities, and the FBI was contacted to investigate further. But nothing came of it. Now, leaning back on his pillow, reflecting on the evening's strange turn of events, Dave remembered how visceral and nasty the Sai Baba forum had become. This was primarily because he had argued that the famed Indian guru, who many claimed to be a divine avatar with miraculous powers, was a bad sleight of hand magician who had deceived his followers for years with his tricks. Dave even went so far as to post, 5 years prior to the advent of YouTube, several videos that precisely documented how Sai Baba produced sacred ash out of his hand and how he manifested necklaces from envelopes he was carrying. But what caused the greatest outcry was when former ex-members in Sai's inner circles alleged that their famed guru was a pedophile. They even went so far as to document in lurid detail how the avatar had seduced them, and worse. There were even stories circulating about revenge murders to keep certain detractors quiet. As Dave was scrolling through his essay, he wondered if the following section was the cause of tonight's death threat. Dave read it out loud to himself. In the early 1990s, I created a website called The Neural Surfer. Several sections of that website were devoted to shedding light on the hidden exploits of a number of nefarious spiritual leaders, including Thakar Singh, John Roger Hinkins, and Sathya Sai Baba. Eventually, a number of devotees of Sai Baba contacted me about how they were duped by their guru, primarily because they felt they had been sexually exploited by their leader under false pretenses. Several of these devotees described in vivid detail about how Sai Baba had sexually seduced them. After these reports appeared on my website, I started getting attacked from various Sai factions worldwide, which eventually led to letters being written to UCSD and Mount San Antonio College demanding that my website be taken off the internet. In addition, several websites were created attempting to cast doubts on Sai's sexual exploits, as well as attacking the veracity of my research on him and the integrity of those who claimed abuse. One very highly placed politician in India contacted UCSD about my website, and I was politely asked by the webmaster at UCSD to take down my site to avoid further political turmoil. I then transferred my site to Mount San Antonio College, but even here the president of the college was asked to shut down the Neural Surfer. Thankfully, the president of the college refused to do so on the grounds of academic freedom. Because of this, I felt it would be important to create an open discussion forum on Yahoo groups where interested participants could voice their experiences and opinions, positively or negatively, on Sai Baba. For many years, this became a focal point for airing many grievances about Sathya Sai Baba, particularly his sexual relations with a number of disciples from around the world. Unfortunately, however, it also became a haven for a tremendous amount of spam-generated posting. I also started to receive a number of disturbing personal threats from varying quarters because I was the founder of the forum. Finally, I had to shut down the group due to these continuing and unrelenting threats. I was contacted by a couple of highly placed Sai Baba devotees who wanted to present their findings to the world about the hidden side of Sai Baba. We had discussions about putting their material on my website and other portals. Eventually, they decided to create a separate site, singularly devoted to the manipulative exploits of India's most famous guru. Their findings caused a worldwide uproar in the Sai Baba community and led to the cover story in India Today about Sai Baba's exploits. BBC Even commissioned a documentary entitled The Secret Swami, which went into lurid detail about the guru's hidden life. But as Dave read further, he realized that it was the letters by ex-devotees who witnessed firsthand Sai Baba's amateurish trickery that was most damaging. As one young man wrote, "Dear Dave, my first witness account of sleight of hand was in Brindavan. I saw Baba come out of the personal interview room and sit down. As he was sitting there, I noticed a large gold watch under his small hand, which he was unsuccessfully trying to hide. A moment later, he made the familiar circular motion with his hand as if he were materializing the object, and then gave a student the watch. On another occasion, I saw Sai Baba reach between the cushions of his chair for something, and then moments later he made the circular motion and showed everyone a small container filled with vibhuti, the grey ash. I then noticed that behind the cushion in his chair there was something shiny, and he paid careful attention to correct the position of the cushion to hide the object. Another time I saw him take a worn bracelet from a man, then with his hand cupped blew on it 3 times at the same time, moving his hand up and down. On the final movement, he tossed the chain into the side of his chair, so it slid down between the inside of the chair's large arm and his leg. He then discreetly took something from his other hand and made the circular motion and gave the man a new bracelet. What is really funny about that situation is that Sai Baba forgot to take the old bracelet from his chair when he left, so when he got up, there it lay in plain view for everyone in the room. A student I was with, and who was very devoted to Baba, picked it up and looked at it, confirming that it was the old bracelet. When Baba returned and noticed his mistake, he scolded this student, who was sitting right at the foot of Baba's chair and could not miss the bracelet. Then Baba sat, and in a flash picked up the bracelet and very discreetly tossed it into the outside upper corner of the arm of the chair. There were no visible pockets there, but there is a very large seam, and the arms of the chair are huge enough to store lots of things. The student in the first account who received the watch is an American who emigrated from India. He came from a very wealthy family in India who were big contributors to the Sai cause. What I came to realize is there is a system in India similar to our mafia. Very prominent families in India support gurus who have great political power, and this is how these families have their influence over political policy. Dave left off the reading. He became reflective, mulling over in his mind the evening's strange events. But why now? It has been years since I and others exposed him. This and other questions kept circling in Dave's brain, but they simply made him more perplexed. Finally, after going back and forth in a mental haze, he decided that he had to get things done, and quickly. Using the Leela Palace's stationery and pen, he wrote the following. 1. First order of business. Who in the hell is Dr. Sinha? Contact Bhagat Ram Kamal or his son. 2. Google search for the latest news or info on Sai Baba devotees and the current state of the organization. 3. Confirm flight to Amritsar on Vistara Airlines and perhaps see if Happy, Swaran Singh, can serve as my personal driver and guide. 4. If the Bhrigu leaf is really mine, be sure to contact a chemist familiar with the dating method. Someone at Guru Nanak Dev University or the University of Delhi. Completely exhausted, Dave couldn't even do his nightly meditation and fell asleep with the paper on his chest. He never did get a chance to go swimming.